Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another session in the series in which we were discussing building a generative AI platform. And this was based on blogs by Chip Huan, who were earlier graduate and then professor at Stanford, where they used to teach machine learning system design. Chip Huan has been a big name when it comes to the system design in ML systems in the industry, and she has published a lot good works out there. So in this particular series, what we were discussing how we can build a generative AI platform, not a simple one, and yet at the same time take on the different intricacies to build complex architecture, which can help us solve the different generative AI problems that have. And in this particular series, we were learning how we can build an architecture like this for a generative AI application, in which in the first session we learned about the context construction, in which we use the racks and the agents and the tools. Then in the second part we saw why and how we can put in the input and the output guardrails, the guardrailing system in our system. And then we in the model gateway we saw in the model API, till now not the model gateway, we saw the generation and the scoring aspect. Now, in this third aspect, if you haven't watched the earlier session of the series, I would recommend you to go and watch these before coming on to this session. Now, in this thing, we are going to create the router. So we will add the model router and gateway. So they are two things. And in our application, we might have a lot of use cases. And for catering to different use cases, we can use a different router in which we might use different models to respond to different types of user queries. And having solutions for different queries have several benefits. That is, I can cater to more use cases, specialized solutions, specialize everything. And mostly these specialized solutions would work way better than the general purpose model. And this can also help us save costs if if we directly know about what's important and what we should focus on. And generally in this router, it consists of an intent classifier that predicts what a user is trying to do. And based on the predicted intent, the query is routed to the appropriate solution. For example, in a customer support chatbot, the intent can be to reset a password. Then we reset this password to the page about the password resetting to correct a billing mistake. Then this is a big thing. We should connect this thing to a human operator. And to troubleshoot a technical issue, we can either connect it to the frequently asked questions or the technical support team that is there. And a lot of times, these intent classifiers can help us to avoid out of scope conversations. And a lot of times, if our system has multiple actions, the router can also involve next action predictor to help the system decide what action we want to take next. And if you have heard like what I just said, doesn't it resemble to what an agent do generally when we are applying agents? Then at that time also at each and every step an agent is thinking what we want to do next. And similar to maybe the next action of the agent that we have. And the second thing that we have is the model gateway. It's similar to maybe you can also understand these things to be as a proxy system or something in which you have all the different use cases from where the input is coming, and there is a one unified API. Through that gateway, you are redirecting it to different things. For example, if we see through the different codes that they have written is they have defined two generation things. One is the generation for the OpenAI, and second is the generation for the Gemini model. And now in this model gateway, they have defined if the model type that we have is OpenAI, then we use the OpenAI model for generating, and if the model type is Gemini, we use the Gemini model generation. And this thing is very interesting, and it seems very easy, but a lot of things we can do because of this thing. And generally, using a model gateway, we can do access control and cost management. A lot of times, even in our organizations, instead of giving who wants access to our OpenAI API for organizational tokens, which can also be leaked, we give people access to the model gateway, creating a centralized and control point of access. The gateway can also implement fine-grained access controls, specifying which user or application should have access to which model. And the gateway can monitor and limit the usage of these API calls, preventing abuse and managing costs. So this is a very, I would say, refined way of thinking how you can have access control. And a lot of times, this model gateway can also be used to implement fallback policies to overcome rate limitations, API failures. And for example, if my API is not unavailable, I can reroute those requests to alternate models, retry after a short way, or do any sort of thing to handle that particular failure of fallback. And this in turn helps our application to be operating smoothly at all time without interruptions. And a lot of times, a lot of requests and responses are already flowing through this gateway, and maybe it's a good place to implement other functionalities such as load balancing, logging, and analytics. I think if I try to build an analogy through the system design, I would maybe see this thing as a proxy or designing a proxy or load balancer. And given the gateways are simply relatively straightforward and has been used widely in the uh, design domain that we have. A lot of the shell services are available, such as Portkeys, MLflow, True Foundry, Cloudflare, and a lot of others. So now the platform that we have been building, earlier we just had the query, the model API, and then finally the output. Now we have made it a fairly complex thing in which we have context reconstruction, then we have guardrails into place, and then finally we have the model gateway, in which earlier we were doing generation and scoring aspect. However, now we have built the routing aspect, which takes care of which query to route to which place, how the model handles fallback policies, or maybe how the model handles the access controls and everything. So now it looks our architecture has started to come a lot into shape. And let's try to keep this session a little bit shorter because I think the early sessions have been very long as compared to how I try to teach to the people in a shorter segments for understanding one concept at a time. So thank you very much if you are sticking till now. And if you really like this, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And see you in the next series that we have. In this particular session, we discuss about how we can build the model router or the model gateway. So see you in the next session. Thank you very much.